So I'm going to be reading to you from After Midnight, which is my story in Heating Up the Holidays. And After Midnight, I've been calling it a reverse Cinderella story because, well, that's what it is. And it's about a kiss, a midnight kiss at a New Year's Eve party, and then the hero runs away and the heroine can't find him again. So this scene that I'm going to read from is at the very beginning, not the very beginning of the first time we meet the heroine, and pretty much this tells the story from more or less the beginning. Although we've had the hero's point of view, and he's gotten a chance to see her before this. Nora Hart's whole body was buzzing. Her head from all the bright blue and hot pink mixed drinks she'd downed, and as much from the excess of sugar as from the abundance of alcohol. But the rest of her, too. Her fingertips, her toes, her inner thighs, which were warm and tingly, a spreading liquid heat that kept filling more of her body until she was pretty sure she would do something crazy. Crazy was than what she'd already done. Not that what she'd done was so outrageous in the scheme of all the possible things, but it was unusual for her. Flirting shamelessly with a guy she'd never met, asking him to dance, and then dancing with him like that. And now they were standing here watching the clock count down, and she was going to kiss him, or make him kiss her, or make him want to kiss her. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the clock with so much focus that she felt certain he was deliberately not looking at her. Around them, shifting, sidling, edging away from a desperate hanger-on or closer to a hot stranger in an effort to get in a position to get kissed. But he wasn't moving. That was a good sign, right? Now would be the perfect time for him to excuse himself to get a drink, but he was stalwart. Do some of these guys have panicked expressions on their faces? He laughed and surveyed the crowd. That guy by the window, he looks a little trapped. What about the guy with curly hair? He'd go out the window if he could. They watched for a moment, but apparently the social awkwardness of fleeing was stronger than his fear because the curly-haired guy stayed put. Beside her, Miles shifted from one foot to the other, which brought his shoulder so it nearly touched hers. The little hairs on her bare arms stood at attention. Even they wanted to get closer to him. The heat in her body had started when she'd first felt his eyes on her. She was used to having men ogle her breasts, and mostly she ignored it. But she'd been checking out this guy before he began to stare at her. She'd seen him lurk as if the party were a spectator sport. He'd come in with a looking blonde guy, and he'd barely made conversation at all, had hung around the periphery, drinking beer and observing. He had sad eyes. Or maybe she'd made that up because he was hot and she wanted to give him a dark, artsy soul to go with his dark hair and dark eyes and slashed eyebrows and Christian Bale mouth. She was watching him, in fact, when Come On Eileen started playing, and she began to dance. And she was watching him when the girl behind her gave a preternaturally loud and painful shriek, so she saw his gaze come up and search for the source of the sound and settle on her breast. And instead of wishing she were built a little more conservatively, she was glad for a change that she had the power to catch and keep men's attention. She waited, because inevitably he would become curious about who was attached to the breasts, and indeed, up came his eyes, and she really dug it that he didn't look away in shame when she caught him staring. He made a face like, shit, you caught me. The curved, slightly twisted, sensual mouth almost but not quite smiling, the eyes still sad. And she grinned at him because she liked him. Could you like someone with whom you'd exchanged no words, only, to put it as fairly as possible, some gawking and a single wordless expression of an apology? Probably not, but she liked him anyway.